inform you when I'll start recording, and it'll also inform you when I'll stop recording. Okay. Right. So now, before I start the talk, I want to introduce myself, okay, because it's very important. Some of you know me already. Some of you are here for the first time. Okay, my focus of research and my focus of business is how emotions in particular impact leadership's decision making. Okay, so I am focused on investigating how our emotions, particularly fear, impact leadership's decision making. And this is what I do, is I try to optimize professionals and entrepreneurs leadership decision making. Okay, and that's my focus. So today's talk is about fear of failure. Okay, so keep in mind that my focus is performance. My focus is decision making. My focus is emotional intelligence. I'm not trained to diagnose, to diagnose or treat mental health conditions. So if you have a question, please ask me that question in the context of decision making, in the context of emotional intelligence, in the context of enhancing your professional capabilities, not in the context of mental health problems. Kindly keep this in mind, because I won't be able to answer those questions. Okay, so now we will talk about fear and fear of failure. Now, before I talk about fear of failure, it's very important for us to understand, where is fear coming from? Why do we have fear in the first place? What's going on? It's very, very important for us to understand this. Okay. And so I'm going to go back to evolutionary biology, and I will explain this phenomenon of fear as to why we have fear. Okay. Understand, fear is here to stay with us, because fear evolved as an important instrument or mechanism to protect us, to enhance our survival. So according to evolutionary biology, we have a brain in our skull focused only and only on two things: survival and passing on the gene. This is it. Okay, this is what our brain is focused on: survival and passing on the gene. So in order to make sure that these two objectives are met, our brain evolved certain functions. Okay, through the evolutionary process, the brain evolved certain functions to fulfill those objectives. Fear evolved as a system to fulfill this important function of survival. And fear does that very, very efficiently. Okay, I'm talking to you today thanks to fear. Okay, we were afraid of things. We were afraid of the dark. We were afraid of the heights, and that protected us. We were afraid of huge things walking around, right? And that protected us. So fear evolved as an important instrument to enhance our survival. So it will remain with us. It will stay with us. Okay, now the job is to optimize fear. The job is to channel it in the right direction. Okay, because things can go wrong, and I will talk about it. But first, I want to talk about this evolutionary basis. So where is fear of failure coming from? Okay, so in order to enhance survival and passing on the gene, your brain evolved another critical function, very important critical function, and that function is social bonding. Okay, now in savannah, in the environment where we were evolving, even before that, we were very, very weak compared to the predators around us. Okay, we were very, very weak compared to the predators around us. So the brain was constantly looking for things or ways to make this process a little bit easier for itself, because it was very, very difficult to survive. So through the evolutionary process, it came up with a brilliant solution. Brilliant solution. How about I connect these people together? How about I join them in a group? If I join them in a group, if I connect them to each other, if I bond them together, then what will happen is that now they will be much, much safer together. Okay, they will procure more food, they will procure better food together. Okay, there will be more mating opportunities within the group. So the group provided a critical function. And this function was to make sure that survival is enhanced. So your brain is very, very sensitive about your social relationships. It's very, very sensitive about it, okay? Particularly, your brain goes mental when there is a threat of isolation. If you feel that you're going to be isolated, if you feel that people's going to throw you out of the group, your brain goes mental. Why? Because now the brain is thinking that I am living right in the middle of savannah, and I was happy in the group, I was secure in the group, my job was easy, but now I'm going to be left alone right in the middle of nowhere, and what'll happen is they're going to get me. So my job is to make sure that this thing survive and pass on the gene, but this job is not going to be possible anymore because the group left me. It's a very painful process for the brain, okay? And we suffer emotionally when there is a threat of isolation, even a slight threat of isolation, even a slight threat to our face or our dignity or our place in a social order, we go mental. It's a very painful process. This is behind fear of failure. Okay, so the earlier ancestors, they wanted to make sure that they are accepted by the group. Because if the group accepts them, then they're not going to be left out. They're not going to be thrown out. They're not going to be in the middle of savannah wandering all alone by themselves. But if, particularly, if they are part of a group and they're not good enough, if they are part of a group and they can't procure more food, better food, if they're part of a group and they can't hunt better, then the group is going to throw them out. This was the beginning of fear of failure. And this is behind your fear of failure today. Okay? So understand, fear is going to stay with you. Fear of failure is, it's a natural part of you. So we don't want to get rid of it. What we want to do is we want to minimize the intensity of it, because understand, fear of failure can be a positive force for achievement as well. So we don't want to get rid of it. Just like fear is a positive force for survival, okay? You don't want to be in a wrong neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning all drunk, thanks to fear. Right? Similarly, fear of failure, this idea that if I'm not up to the standards, then I'm going to be all alone, then, this deep psychological fear, then you're not going to achieve anything in life. Then there's not going to be any motivation for you to do things, right? What we want to do is we want to optimize things. Okay, so this was just the basic explanation of the evolutionary background of your fear of failure. Now, there's something important you need to understand. During our evolutionary process, we evolved decision-making processes. okay, which were very, very efficient for that environment. Very, very efficient shortcuts. Okay, those are called biases and heuristics. Okay, these are technical terms: biases and heuristics. Basically, those are cognitive framework and decision-making paradigms that we evolved back then. Okay, back in our evolutionary history, to make quick decisions, particularly quick decisions for survival. Okay, and they were critical. Okay, one such shortcut is called error management theory. This is very important for us to understand. So what is error management theory? According to error management theory, I rather be safe than do something stupid or make a small error. Okay, because a small error means I can die. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. That's error management theory, that overcautious behavior. It protected us. It protected us. So imagine there is something huge walking, right? And we take cover behind the tree. That's error management theory. Okay, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather be safe than be seen by that big, huge monster out there. Okay, it's getting dark now, so I'll rather be in my cave. That's that's a shortcut, and it tries to protect us. But we don't live in that environment anymore. We don't live in savannah anymore. Our brain does, we don't. So we need to be aware of these biological processes or these cognitive functions that are still dominant in our brain. And we need to understand that, oh, okay, my fear of failure could be a bit exaggerated because of my error management theory. Just that understanding is more than enough for you to exercise some sort of control over your fear of failure, because this is what we are trying to aim, is we are trying to control the intensity of it. Okay, and this is something I'll be talking about. Now I want to give you sort of an idea of few components in the brain which are involved in fear and fear of failure. Okay, just a few components. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that you are comfortable with this evolutionary biology story that I've just told you. Okay, if you have any question, please write it down. We will engage with questions and answers later on. But for now, if you're not happy, let me know. If you are happy, thumbs up. Thumbs up so I can move on. But if someone still needs more explanation, you can ask me a quick question. Okay, it better be a quick one, David. Okay, go on, David. 1 second. Let me turn on your microphone. Yes, David, turn on your microphone, please, if you have a question, unless you pressed the wrong button. Okay, you're fine. I think you pressed the wrong button. No, that's fine. Okay, yeah, it's common. That's why I said you possibly have pressed the wrong button, right? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about these few components in your brain which are engaged in this process. And the reason I'm going to talk about these components in your brain which are responsible for fear and fear of failure is not that I want to prove that I have a lot of knowledge about neuroscience and things like that. It's to give you agency. Okay, it's to give you this idea that your emotions are nothing more than chemical and electrical functions in your brain. That's it. That's all. Okay, they're not some sort of these gigantic monsters that are some sort of uncontrollable entities. They're nothing more than chemical and electrical functions. Okay, and there are ways in which you can change the chemical and electrical activity in your brain. And through that, you can change your thinking, and through that, you can change your behavior, right? But for that, you need to understand, what's going on in your brain. So there are, second, sorry, somebody's trying to get in. Right. So there are certain areas in the brain which are involved in this whole business of fear and fear of failure. The most important area in your brain which is involved in fear or survival related emotions, both negative and positive, but primarily survival related emotions, is an area of the brain called the amygdala. Okay. It's a pair that exists right in the middle of the brain, behind somewhere your eyes. Okay, it's shaped like almond and pretty much the size of almond, and that's why it's called the amygdala, because amygdala is a term used for almond in Greek language or Latin. I'm sorry, I'm not clear as to which one is that, but anyway, amygdala is a term for almond. Okay, so it's a pair that exists in the middle section of the brain, in straight line behind your eyes, and the job of these two components is to monitor dangers in the environment particularly. So fear lives in amygdala. Okay, so amygdala is basically your defense department. It keeps an eye on threats around you, and it's very, very serious about any threat in the environment. And it's so sensitive about threats that imaginary threats activate it as well. A hoax can also activate it. Okay, so imagine, an aircraft, so an Air Force pilot, right? And an Air Force pilot is instructed that when the light turns red, you jump into the plane and you are in the sky. That's it, right? So now the pilot does not care about the whys and the hows and everything. All it cares about, red light, I'm in the plane, I'm in the air. So sometimes whoever is turning on the red light, they might see something in the air that might or might not be threat. But because of their training and because of the sensitivity of the job, they are told that it doesn't matter. If you see something coming from that direction, turn the red button. And this is how the amygdala operates, right? So your thinking has a lot of influence on your amygdala as well. The amygdala will turn the red light on, even if it's a hoax. Keep this in mind, okay? And it's very, very important for us to understand in the context of fear of failure that your amygdala would be activated if there is real threat or if there is imaginary threat. Particularly, there is an area of the brain called the BNST or BST region. It's connected to amygdala, and the BST region is activated when there is uncertainty. That's why it's connected to fear. So if there is uncertainty, then the BST will definitely tell the amygdala to engage fear. Okay, because uncertainty is where fear lives, and fear of failure is basically the fear of uncertainty primarily. Okay, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen a year from now or 5 years, depending on the project that you are engaged in. So in this instant, BST, which is engaged in uncertainty, will activate amygdala. So you have two components, two powerful components which are engaged now. Okay, and they are trying to make sense of the situation. They are trying to figure out what's going on. What's the threat? What can we do about it? But because that threat is not clear yet, because that threat is in imagination, that threat is in future, so our agony and our pain keep on increasing and increasing and increasing. See, if there is a lion right in front of me, if there is a hyena right in front of me, if there is a person with a knife right in front of me, my amygdala will be engaged. That's the fear I can see right in front of me. And what my amygdala will do, as I will explain in a minute, is it will engage my stress response, and I will either attack that thing or run away from that thing. So this threat does not agonize me. because this is the thing I can see right in front of me. But the thing that I cannot see in front of me, but I'm afraid of, is very, very painful for the brain, because your brain loves certainty. When there is uncertainty, there will be fear. Keep this in mind. Okay, and it is done through the interaction of the BST and the amygdala, right? But there has to be a solution, right? Yes, there are solutions. Okay, so, or the brain is trying to help you, but you might not be helping your brain. So what happens is, we have an area of the brain just right behind the forehead, and this area is called the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. So the cortical regions of the brain evolved for a lot of things, but one of the most important job that they evolved for was to exercise some control over emotions. Okay, because our emotions were sort of guiding us in the wrong directions. Our decision making was faulty. So evolution thought or demanded that there should be a mechanism which can inform emotions. Keep this in mind, which can inform emotions, right? So amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, they talk to each other. They communicate with each other. Okay, they have this bi-directional communication that goes on and on and on forever. And what happens is, basically, the amygdala is saying, well, there's a threat in the environment, and the BST is responsible for rationality. The prefrontal cortex, it's responsible for rationality. It is the center of decision making. It is the center of planning. It is the center of whatever we call as humans, intelligence, right? So the PFC is talking to amygdala, then they're both talking to each other. So imagine there is a situation. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a story. Grandpa in Savannah is walking, and Grandpa in Savannah saw a shadow. Okay, now the shadow looked like a cat. So now the amygdala is engaged. And when the amygdala is engaged, stress is engaged, fear is engaged. So now what happens is that information about the cat or the shadow is sent over to the prefrontal cortex, where it is analyzed. So the prefrontal cortex analyzes it, and it comes up with a solution that, well, the mouth, the shape of the mouth or the face does not look like it's a cat. It looks like it's an antelope. Okay, so it sends that information to the amygdala that I think, and I'm sure that this is not a cat, it is an antelope. As a matter of fact, it might be an opportunity rather than a threat. So now the amygdala will make a sensible decision, like, oh, thank you very much. So it'll calm down the stress response, and now the body wants to take advantage of the opportunity. So before that, what will happen is, Grandpa would see a shadow and Grandpa will run. That's inefficient. That's not a good decision, because this was an opportunity, this was food, right? Now, because of the prefrontal cortex, Grandpa made optimal decision. Grandma said, oh my God, this is not a threat. I'm going to take cover and I'll try to hunt this antelope because this is food now. So that's how these regions evolved to drill some sense into our emotions so we can make better decisions in life. This is the job of the prefrontal cortex. That prefrontal cortex try to talk to your amygdala and try to control the emotional responses of the amygdala. Now, either your prefrontal cortex is going to dominate, or either your emotional centers going to dominate, which will decide your decision making. What we want is, we want our prefrontal cortex to dominate, and we will be talking about that, how we're going to do that. Right now, there are other parts in the brain. One of the parts is insula. Now, insula is engaged in this emotional control aspects. Okay, and it helps the prefrontal cortex in controlling the responses of particularly the amygdala, the strong emotional responses, right? Then we have hippocampus. hippocampus is something you need to keep in mind. And hippocampus is very, very instrumental in fear of failure, because hippocampus is the center of our emotional memory. Okay, so the way the brain works is brain will store information in your memory with emotional salience. There has to be an emotional quality to a memory. Okay, so for example, you saw a lion in savannah. That needs to be stored with fear attached to it. Okay, you were walking in, the grandpa was walking in savannah, and grandpa saw a tree with with a red fruit hanging from it. That information needs to be attached with positive emotions in the hippocampus. So what happens is that our past influences our present. Okay, so if we went through a lot of failures in our life in the past, unfortunately, or because of our own stupidities, but we failed a lot in the past, the brain will record that information because the brain is trying to protect you. So your hippocampus will bring that memory to the front, and that can engage amygdala, and that can engage the BST region, the uncertainty. Oh my God, I started this business 5 years ago, and I ended up in debt of 40,000, and then I had to declare bankrupt myself, right? So this means that this new opportunity that I'm going to take on today will also end up in failure, right? Because of what happened in the past. Because the hippocampus was actually telling the brain that because that happened in the past, there is a potential of failure now. Okay, it's trying to protect us. That because we stumbled while we were running from a predator last time, that means there is a chance that we can also stumble again. That's all the brain is trying to do. So that's the role of so these components work in coordination in creating this emotional response called the fear of failure. Our job is to understand what's going on, and our job is to make sure to modulate the response or control the response, not completely eliminate it. That's not possible. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing now. So I want to talk about the psychology of it, and what caused the intensity of the fear of failure. What happened in the past? We all have fear of failure, but why does X suffer a lot, and why does Y have the capacity to deal with it? We need to find out what happened. So I'm going to talk about the psychology, particularly the psychological influences on fear of failure now. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you understood the neuroscience side of things. If you understood the neuroscience side of things, thumbs up, please. The mechanics of it, or the machinery of it. Okay. If you have any question, please write it down. And as I said, we will be talking about, we will talk about the whole thing in depth, and I will be answering your questions. You will be telling your stories, but that'll be the second part of it. For now, I will share my information. Right. So what happened in some cases, because their response is very intense to any future opportunity. Their fear is very intense. So what happened, right? We need to figure out. And by the way, what I'm talking about now is not exhaustive. These are few of the things. I'm just giving you an example as what could have happened, right? So you pursue your own research to find out what happened in your case. In some cases, if it's too much, you need to talk to a psychologist or psychotherapist as to what happened in the past and how to diminish the impact of that event, or multiple events that happened in the past. All I'm doing is I'm trying to guide you in a direction that you need to go. So upbringing and parental influence has a lot to do with our fear of failure. Okay. Parental expectations play a huge role in fear of failure, because as a child, we want to be accepted by our parents, right? We want their acceptance. So we do a lot of things just to make sure that our parents accept us and like us and reward us with their affection and their love and their attention. Okay, that's just a natural impulse that we have. It's an instinctive thing. We all have it. So what happens is that if parents have very high expectations from us, then children can internalize that. And then they want to meet those standards. And then this fear, because there's uncertainty, what if I don't achieve that? So that will engage fear now, because now they're afraid that, oh my God, what if I fail the exams? What if I don't end up as a banker or as a doctor or as a lawyer or whatever they are expecting of me? Then that means that they will not appreciate me and they will not love me, right? So this is huge, by the way. This is huge, right? This will impact our perspective and our outlook towards success and failure and fear of failure. This is one of the reasons people can feel a fear of failure. The intensity of fear of failure will be high. Then there is parenting styles, right? There are parents who are highly critical. They're very controlling. As a matter of fact, sometimes they're very, they punish children as well if they fail or if they're not up to, a certain mark. That also impacts our attitude toward success and failure. And in those children, fear of failure will be very, very high, because now serious punish, it's not just daddy or mommy is not going to like me. It's daddy and mommy is going to, do this to me, whatever that is, right? So now, there is punishment involved. There's pain involved in this as well. Could be physical pain, right? Or it could be, they just detach themselves from us. Okay, they might say things to us that we might not like. You can imagine, right? And so this is also a big factor in our fear of failure. Parental modeling. Okay, how our parents dealt with fear of failure or failure in general. Okay, were they okay with it? Were they able to get up the day after and start anew, or started, a different project, and they were like, okay, done and dusted? Or they became depressed, they became alcoholic, they start throwing things around. Oh my God, why me? Why me? That behavior is transmitted to children, and they will deal with issues of failure and success in the same manner as their parents did. Okay, so they will be overreact. Their emotional reaction will be very, very strong. Okay. Then there are theories, psychological theories about human, relationships. One is a very powerful theory. It is called the attachment theory. Okay. According to attachment theory, if we are paid attention in that early phase of life, right? If we are loved and cared for and paid attention to, then we develop healthy attachment styles or secure attachment styles, right? But if we are not paid attention to and we're neglected, then we develop unhealthy attachment, or one of them is avoidant. So we avoid settling into relationships. And the other one is insecure attachment style. So the insecure attachment style is when people kind of beg for relationships, or a crumb is good enough for me as long as you are in my life. Please don't leave me. That kind of attitude. They fall apart when their relationships are threatened. Okay, that's an insecure attachment style. So what the avoidant and the insecure are doing, according to this theory, is primarily they're trying to prevent the pain that they went through in their childhood, the deep, deep, deep psychological pain that they went through in childhood, that pain of abandonment, right? So one strategy is, I'm not going to have relationships. So there is no pain, right? I'm not going to commit. I'm not going to settle down. So what are you going to do to me, right? That's one strategy. This strategy is that I will try my best to do whatever it takes as long as you don't leave me. Okay, so it's coming from a position of weakness in a way. That's unhealthy. That's the position of strength going too far. But this one is very vulnerable. And this one is very, very vulnerable to fear of failure now. Okay, because this one is saying, oh my God, if I do this, if I say this, and they don't like it, they're going to leave me. If I fail in this endeavor or this project, then they are going to be upset. So it's all about them, right? Because they want them in their lives in any shape and form. Okay? Could be an abusive relationship. They're saying, fine, at least they are around. Okay? So we need to understand the power of those dynamics as well in our fear of failure, according to this theory. Then there is the impact of over-parenting. Okay, so basically what happens is that there are parents, and I know a few as well, who are very, very protective of their children. Okay, my princess, my prince. Okay, I don't want them to see any hardships in life. I don't want them to suffer. That's a very natural sort of, that's a very natural inclination that every parent has. But the problem is that life is full of difficulties. Life is full of challenges. And we need to train our children for those challenges, right? There is literature, not one, not two pieces of literature. There is a lot of literature which has established that there are neurobiological functions that are strengthened when we engage with adversity. Every time we engage with an adversity, those components are strengthened in our brain. So in a way, it's a muscle that we develop, which means that tomorrow something bigger happens, we are ready for it because our muscles are stronger. With these children, because they were not exposed to adversities, so they don't have in a way the mental muscle to deal with it. So what happens is that when they start practical life, or when they are thrown into the real thing, right? It's like in schools where everybody is given a prize. Fine. They're little kids. There might be some theory behind it. Fine. But when they start competing in real sports, then it's not like that. It's brutal, right? Because the other side is winning now, right? And the other side is not going to care about your feelings or your emotions. They just want to win. So these children, they fall apart. They're like, whoa, what happened? I'm not ready for it. I can't take it. Okay. So their fear of failure is very, very high because they're not prepared for it. Okay. Their muscle is not ready for it. These are parental influences. Now, there are social and cultural influences as well. Okay. If you live in a culture which is very success oriented, but every culture is pretty much success oriented, but success is defined differently, right? In some cultures, success could be, how good you are to your neighbors, while in other cultures, it might be, how much money you have. And more cultures are becoming more and more materialistic now. Okay, so we are judged by the kind of houses we live in, the kind of car we drive, the kind of dress we wear, those material possessions, it defines our, success and our achievements. So if those culture have certain criteria for success, and if somehow either we don't have the capacity or we are unfortunate enough not to be in a position to get to that level, okay, then our fear of failure would be very, very high. Again, it goes back to the group dynamics, right? That I will not be accepted if I don't have 5 cars, if I don't have a 6-bedroom mansion, right? If I don't have a boat, then I won't be accepted by the group. And that keeps us going, okay? It keeps us going, but it also engages our fear of failure. Keep this in mind, okay? Social comparison is universal, okay? Social comparison means that we live in a social bubble, and we always try to compare ourselves to our social bubble, okay? So, someone who is running a small shop in a town is not comparing their business to billionaires, right? They are comparing their business and their business success and their material success and their life quality to the social bubble that they exist in, okay? And if there are threats to their subjective value of success, then their fear of failure will be very, very high, okay? So these are the factors we need to keep in mind. Then there is the this desire for perfectionism. Some people, and it's a fear-based behavior, by the way, perfectionism. Mostly, not in everyone, but mostly. So if somebody is trying to be perfect, and if they think that, no, I need to have this, I need to have this, I need to have this, otherwise I'm a failure, then, chances are there is a fear of failure, okay? Then there are past experiences, the impact of past failures, the impact of past traumas. They can have influence on your fear of failure as well. So these are some of the influences that shapes your emotional response to your life, how you're going to look at things in your life, okay? And all I wanted to do was to sort of give you an example of what could have happened back then, sorry, okay? Obviously, some of the issues are so deep that they need the help of psychologists and psychotherapists, but some of the things I think you can go through this self sort of evaluation and go through your past, and you might say, yeah, maybe mommy was a little bit tough on me, and maybe dad, but they came from a position because they were going through rough times. So, all right, I know where my fear is coming from. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and hopefully, you will deal with it. But sometimes some traumas are too deep to be, to be treated by yourself. Or you might expect that self-help will do wonders, but that's not how it works, right? So in that case, please do consult psychotherapist or psychologist. Right. I want to talk about different contexts now, okay? Education context, professional context, and maybe personal context as well, as to how fear of failure show up in these contexts. What are the behavioral symptoms of fear of failure? But before I do that, I just want to make sure that you understood these influences on your fear of failure. If you understood all of them, please thumbs up. Okay. So because I get pretty much people from all walks of life, so I'll give you a few contexts, okay? If you are a student and you have a high fear of failure, it's going to show up in different behaviors, okay? And some of the behaviors are that you will procrastinate, okay? Procrastination means that, you're going through some sort of fear of failure, okay? You are trying to you're basically phrasing. You're saying, there's fear of failure behind it. Okay, you will avoid challenges. Okay, so let's suppose you're a student and your professor or your teacher ask you to do this, and it's a difficult project. You might hesitate because you're afraid that you might fail at it. So that's a sign that there's fear of failure behind it. If exams cause a lot of anxiety, that's an obvious fear of failure. Again, perfectionism is also a sign of fear of failure. Okay, what happens is that a student is going through a fear of rejection or fear of judgment by their peers, by all the other students, and their parents and their teachers. Okay, so this can increase actually the intensity of their fear of failure. Okay? So watch out for those behaviors. These are some of the behaviors. If you notice those behaviors in yourself, if you're watching YouTube videos and there's a project that needs to be done, or there's something difficult that needs to be done, but you're watching videos stupid and you're talking to friends, or let me get myself some strawberries, or okay, I'm going to go for a walk. All these behaviors are signs that you're going through fear of failure. So deal with your fear of failure first. Okay, chances are that you might not procrastinate. Okay. In professional context, risk aversion is the biggest one. Okay, people who are afraid of failure, they don't take risks. Okay, that's a big one, particularly for entrepreneurs who thrives in risk. This can be a stumbling block. Okay, so that's one sign that you're going through a fear of failure. So the entrepreneur will hesitate to innovate. A professional will hesitate to speak up in a meeting because they say, well, I'd rather not give my opinion because then people are going to make fun of me. Fear of failure, or my ideas might be so stupid that they will never work. So why should I, speak up? So they remain quiet. They became, these silent spectators in a meeting rather than actively engaged, and that can impact their career as well, right? Self-sabotage. So why take on a biggest project? Why take on a biggest, goal? Because there's a lot of, there's a chance that you might fail. So how about if I settle for low? So I'm not going to take that big responsibility that comes with being a senior manager, because there's a high chance that I might fail. So I'd rather not go for promotion. Okay, I'd rather not change my job. Okay, because there's a high chance that I might fail. So self-sabotage, you don't go for it. Okay, that's a sign that you are going through fear of failure. Procrastination, again, in professional contexts as well. And also, you might be worth more than what you are paid for, but you don't dare ask your employer to raise your salary, right? Because you might be thinking, oh no, because I'm not good enough. So the obvious answer will be no. So that fear is holding you back. So you don't, go and talk to your manager that, look, I deserve more. You don't have that assertiveness about you, right? You kind of, back off from things. In personal life, it can impact your relationships. You might feel shame and embarrassment. Your self-esteem suffers a lot when you fear, when you are afraid of failure and you don't achieve things or you don't go for things, right? You don't want to upset people because you think, well, if I upset people, then they're going to leave me. So that fear of failure is there. And it goes on and on and on and on and on, right? It impacts your social life big way as well. But that's not my domain, so I don't want to go deep into it. But I just want to point out that this thing can damage multiple areas of your life. It can even impact your health as well, right? I just want you to point out what happens when you have this, out of control fear of failure. We want to control it. And this is something I'm going to be talking about now as to how we can manage it. not eliminate it, how we can manage it and how we can channel it in the right direction so we benefit from our fears rather than destroyed by them. Okay, so I'm going to do that now, but I just want to make sure that you're happy. Thumbs up if you're happy. Is everything makes sense, right? Is everything clear? I try to be as simple as possible in my delivery. Okay, I don't like to use complicated jargon or charts and diagrams and things like that. If you think that no, I should be, then let me know. But I try to simplify things. So I hope that simplification is serving its purpose, that you're getting what I'm trying to say here. Right. So are we all happy? Thumbs up. I need responses. It looks like I'm talking to a screen. It doesn't look like I'm talking to people. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, just engage with me, please, because it feels like I'm just looking at a blank screen and talking to myself. You don't need to turn on your camera because I'm recording it, so it'll be on YouTube. But just, some sort of communication. Right. How we deal with it, how we manage our fear of failure, how we optimize our fear of failure. Okay, there are a few ways or techniques that I'm going to talk about now. The most important thing you need to understand is that your purpose in life, the goals that you're trying to achieve, the values that you're trying to pursue are the most important thing which will influence your fear of failure. Okay, if they are not aligned with your neurobiology, if they are not aligned with who you are, your fear of failure will be very, very high. So the first thing we need to do is to align our values and goals and purpose in life according to our strengths or our neurobiology. This is very, very important. So, as I told you, that your brain is focused on two things: survival and passing genes, right? So these are the two pillars that the brain is focused on. So now the brain evolved certain functions to pursue these goals, to achieve these goals. So imagine there is a platform, and that platform consists of your drives and instincts and motivations, the desires you have, the instincts that you have. That's the platform. Inside, everything is inside that platform. And on that platform stands survival and passing on the genes. So the pursuit and the achievement of those drives and those instincts become very, very important for the brain, because once those drives and those instincts are achieved, that means survival and passing on the genes will be achieved, right? So the impulse to protect fear system lives in that, right? So one scientist, his name is Yak Pangsep. I'll write it down in the chat box, right? He researched and he found out so far that there are 7 systems in the brain, 7 systems in the brain. So there's fear system, there's anger system, there is the care system, which makes us love. There's the lust system, right? So there are 7 systems basically, and I talk about those systems in my talk on how to choose a purpose in life. I go deep into those systems as well, but I'm just going to give you an overview now. I don't want to overcomplicate things. So basically, there are platform consists of those systems, right? And those systems are they're physical systems, but they give birth to these drives and these inclinations and these motivations in you. Now, critically, according to him, and this is gold, each of us, we are a combination of the strength and the weaknesses of those systems. Each of us. We are a combination of the strengths and the weaknesses of those systems. So if our seeking system is very strong, then seeking system will make us go for achieving things. Because seeking system, is the system which force an animal to pursue new pastures. Those creatures are more inquisitive. They are the one who's going to fly up to Mars and find out what's in Mars. The seeking system, right? So if our anger system is stronger, then we want to pursue power. We can't tolerate injustices in the environment or in the culture that we live in. Okay, if our care system is stronger, then we bond with people. We have more empathy. Okay, so we are all a combination of the strengths and weaknesses of these systems. And this is the biological basis of our personalities. Okay, so if we go against our biological inclinations, then our fear of failure will be high because our chances of success will be low. And the brain knows it. If we are aligned with our neurobiology, then our fear response will be low because our chances of success will be high. So to simplify it, in simple language, please pay attention here. When you set goals in life or objectives in life, which are based on your strengths, then your chances of success shoots up and your fear of failure goes down. It's like the brains know that now, yes, now I can help, now I can achieve. If you set your goals in life, if you pursue things which are based on your weaknesses because of the social pressure, or the parents told you, or you've been influenced by someone in the environment, you saw a movie or something, whatever, and you want to be that, but you're not really good at it. So you're going to struggle. And that will multiply your fear of failure. So the most important thing that we need to do, first and foremost, is we need to align our life according to our neurobiology, in line with it. Okay, we need to swim with the stream, not against it, because we have our own strengths and weaknesses. Remember the systems, the biological systems. Okay, this is critical. This is very, very important for us to understand. We need to be able to manage fear, control fear. Okay, this is the second one I'm giving you. So imagine grandpa standing in front of the cave. And grandpa just woke up, and grandpa is looking over the horizon, and grandpa wants to go for hunt or something, or to collect something. Basically, grandpa wants to bring food home to his cave. But what happens is that in front of the cave now, grandpa is engaging his neurobiological systems that I've talked about earlier. Okay, so his memory is engaged now. So his memory told him that if he goes straight, then he'll meet a lion over there because he saw a lion over there the other day. If he goes to the right, then he saw a pack of hyenas there the other day. And if he goes left, he saw a leopard the other day over there. That's the memory systems, is reminding grandpa what can happen today, right? It's a fresh day, but because X happened in the past, so there's a possibility that something might happen today as well. So now the BST region is engaged. And the BST region is engaged because there's uncertainty. What do I do now? Do I go right? Do I go left? Do I go straight? What do I do? Grandpa is frozen. Grandpa can't make a decision. This is what happens when the fear of failure is intense. We freeze. No action. Good Lord had mercy on grandpa, and a lightning strikes him. Oof. And he is endowed with wisdom. So the good Lord told grandpa to engage a superpower. Nonchalance. It's a French word. Basically, it means I'm okay with the outcome. I'm okay with the outcome. Why? Because I don't control the movement of the universe. So grandpa is told, is ordered to move straight, to engage nonchalance. Whatever it happens, it happens. Okay, move on. He's been gifted. He's been told. He's been ordered by this, the higher power to move on. So grandpa moves on, and grandpa reached that tree where the lion was. But when grandpa looked around, there is no lion anymore. So he's scratching his head and he's like, what happened? This is when he realized that his thinking has nothing to do with the way the universe is operating. There was a lion the other day, but there is no lion today. Thanks to nonchalance, I made the decision. And because I made the decision, I moved, I realized that there is something which is beyond my control, and I will call it luck. He named it luck. It was a simple word, right? Luck. That, okay, it's luck. A phenomenon. He termed it luck. That, the way the universe is moving, I have no control. I don't know. There was a lion. There is no lion today. There might be a lion tomorrow, by the way. There might not be a lion tomorrow. But I don't know. All I can do is move on. But what happened? Why nonchalance? I told you that your prefrontal cortex is communicating to your amygdala. Okay? It is communicating with your amygdala. So the moment uncertainty kicks in, amygdala and BST would dial up the fear response and you'll freeze. But any suggestion from prefrontal cortex that things could potentially be otherwise, or I'm okay with whatever happened to me, this removes uncertainty. The grandpa is saying, okay, I'll go, there will be a lion, I might be dead, or I might bring food. Now there's certainty, now there is risk. 50-50 now. You make decisions in 50-50. You don't make decisions in 0-100. Now it's clarity. So prefrontal cortex told amygdala, Either a positive scenario, nah, everything will be all right, or either a scenario that I'm okay with it, whatever is the outcome. That diminished uncertainty. With it, the impact of fear lessened, and grandpa moved in a direction which is critical. Move in a direction. That's how life is. All we can do is take the steps and meet fate when something happens, as it happens. Fear of failure is when we engage in this thought process of no, oh my god, no, there will be a lion, oh yeah, definitely I'll be eaten, oh no, so I'm going to stay in my cave. Okay, so this is in a way one of the most powerful cognitive mechanism that we evolved as human species. Okay, people who sit on a rocket, which is a bomb, technically it is a bomb, right? A rocket. And they fly towards moon and all the space and all the planets. They do feel the fear, but they are okay with the outcome. They don't think that, yes, I will land on the moon and yes, I'll be back. I don't think that they think that way. They know that we're going to be sitting on a bomb, traveling at a certain speed and landing on a planet that we never seen before. We don't know what's going to be out there. There could be creatures that will just immediately kill us. So they are okay with the outcome, good or bad. They're mentally prepared for it. So their fear of failure is low because there is no uncertainty now. It's going to be either or. Okay, so this is one of the powerful technique that you need to engage in your life. Now, there's more to it, and I talk about this whole stress and fear response. I go too deep into it, but because I don't have time now. But you need to attend my other talks, and once you attend all the talks, then things starts to connect. We have two tendencies. One is, this is the third one. Okay, this is the third technique I'm giving you. So one is approach, and the other one is avoid. These are just, these are all, every creature has these tendencies. Even insects have these tendencies. Either they approach and they will avoid. Approach things that are good for survival and passing on the genes. Avoid the things that are potentially dangerous for survival and passing on the genes. So these are the two powerful tendencies we have. In terms of fear of failure, approach means that we are engaging in nothing but positive thinking, the rosy picture, the beautiful outcome, the everything will be hunky-dory, that is approach, which is required, which is, positive. We work hard because we expect something positive, but on its own, it's just positive. And this is not healthy because it could potentially get us into situations where we might fail miserably, and that can create memories, and so it can have its own negative consequences or outcomes. Then you have the avoidance mechanism where you say, oh no, I'm not, no, I'm not, it's like going the other extreme, that I will not start this business, I will not start this relationship, I will not do this, no, I'm safe. Again, that tendency is gone too far. The tendency that I explained earlier, the error management theory, where we, I'd rather be safe than sorry. That's gone too far. That is unhealthy as well, because now we are frozen. We're not taking any action. Key is to engage both simultaneously, because for the brain, these are both survival techniques. Approach things that are good for survival and passing on the gene. Avoid things that are bad for survival and the genes. Outcome, we survive. So brain is looking at it as two strategies to deal with survival and passing on the gene. But optimal is when we engage both simultaneously. So to give you an example, I forward, okay, I will be in the best shape of my life on the 31st of January 2026. My blood pressure would be blah, my cholesterol level will be blah, my shape will be this, my weight will be this, my energy level will be this approach. If I don't sleep well today, if I don't eat well today, if I don't exercise today, if I drink too much today, if I smoke too much now, boom, everything will fall. That's when you engage the approach and the avoid simultaneously, and this increases your chance of success. And once you engage it, and once you taste success 1, 2, 3, 4, your fear of failure comes down. With every success, your fear of failure comes down. Okay, right. So I don't want to bombard you with all the neuroscience and psychology of how to deal with fear, but obviously attend more of my talks and hopefully you'll make sense of things. But for now, I think this should be enough. If you can exercise these 3 steps, hopefully things all starts to change and you will feel it, that you have more control over your fear. Now I will stop the recording and I will ask you to come forward and engage with conversation. Okay, and